people, friends, and cohorts. Welcome back. I again just wanted to try to do a quick little broadcast today. Of course, I am not quite ready to do a live yet. I'm working on that. I have a new camera coming. I'm so excited. I finally bit the bullet, just ordered one because I really get stuck on these things like camera and sound, but maybe that's probably a good thing. You'll probably agree with me. So I'm sorry about the light. I am excited about the camera because it will have better features to help adjust the lighting for me. That gets pretty complicated even when you have your own lighting setup. So anyway, enough on that. I was really just wanted to come on here to highlight something that happened this week. It's really not my preference to come on and talk about news, but it excited me. And I don't see a lot of people talking about it. Of course, that doesn't mean that I didn't miss it somewhere. I certainly can't watch everyone. And especially with the many projects, including having a YouTube channel. I'm sure you can understand. We all have projects. But what was exciting for me that we saw this week on Monday, the 17th, we saw the FBI come out and do a press conference on mainstream media about how they had arrested two Chinese folks. Nothing against the Chinese. I think the vast majority of our Chinese fellow humans in the world are just amazing people. And I hope someday to have the opportunity to get to know more about that. In the meantime, they did arrest two Chinese. There's good and bad in all groups of people. And they were arrested for having a Chinese police department in New York. Now, if you do some research on New York, you'll actually find that New York is supposed to have a direct correlation with the UN, the United Nations. I'm just starting to try to occasionally do some research, more research on that myself, so I can talk about it in an educated manner and share some of those resources. I don't quite have enough information yet to speak on it extremely intelligently, but I think we could all agree that we have seen a lot of information about China, possibly, or an aspect of China, of course, possibly being an occupying combatant in the United States. So why is this exciting? Why that they came out and they announced it? Well, we've been hearing about, I want to say it's been at least a year that we've been hearing about Chinese police stations in multiple cities in the United States. I could be wrong. Is becoming somewhat of a blur at this point. Things have been so unusual for the last, gosh, what, 3-5 years? So perhaps it hasn't quite been a year, but it seems like we started hearing little things coming out about Chinese police stations in multiple cities in the United States about a year ago to me. So why would the FBI do something now? Of course, there's a lot of question marks out there about whether the FBI are good guys or bad guys. I think we do have a lot of good people in the FBI and in all of our alphabet agencies. Again, I think there's good and bad in all groups of people. So I'll leave that there. But why is it important? Why does it matter? It was a pretty quiet announcement, even though it was on mainstream media. To me, this relates directly to what we keep hearing about the law of war, the manual that the Department of Defense has, which relates also to the Geneva Convention codes. So that's another thing to study. But it's very interesting. We hear the 17th letter talk about the law of war manual, and specifically we often hear about section 11.3, which this seems to me to directly relate to. That's why I think it's exciting, because why didn't the FBI do something a lot sooner? Well, perhaps this is indicative of as a marker of change is happening. That's why it's exciting to me. Perhaps this is a marker to show us that the tide is turning, that we're coming to the end of this movie. We can only pray for that. And so if you get into the Law of War Manual, it is very interesting. The most recent publication of that was from June 12th of 2015. I had a hard time finding the day that Mr. T actually came down to announce his candidacy for the 2016 race in the United States. I want to say that was actually the day after that publication on June 12th of 2015. But what I did find was the official announcement came on June 16th of 2015. So we could dial in on that. I've heard others say that when he came down the escalator and did his press conference announcing it, that it was the day after that, but I'm not positive. We'd have to I'd have to finish my research there. So, but you're welcome to do that, of course, if you haven't already. So I think that's just really fascinating. Of course, you can get into the reason I wanted to bring that up is that it again is sort of supports a timeline with events. Of course, we're just connecting dots. We don't have someone that's a credible source literally sitting here and telling us this is exactly what's going on and that we can count on. But I do believe that we have to use our intuition, use our discernment, pay attention to events. I think events are clearly indicative of what's really going on because they're events, of course. I hope that's clear. I don't think that needs a deeper explanation. If something happens, then it's happening. That's an event. Yes? All right. So when this Chinese police station was announced as coming out into the open and being closed in New York, this relates to the section of the Law of War Manual where there is a process, that there are rules that must be observed and followed when a nation is under occupation from an invading force. And this seems to correlate with that. It seems that perhaps a faction of what we call the Chinese government, there's a lot of smoke and haze there, could have been occupying the United States as an invading country, perhaps. I'm not saying I'm right. I just think it's really interesting. And I think that we need to pay attention to everything that's going on all the time because we're not getting the real news, right? So this goes to a lot of different things. The way that battles, WARs, are fought is different in our modern world. We are not necessarily fighting them on battlefields, or the battlefield rather has changed. It's not like an old time war where people went head to head in a physical realm with weapons. It's often the weapons have changed as well. It's psychological warfare. I want to say they call it 5G, the fifth. Again, I have to look that up. I didn't have time. There's some really great material on a channel called Beyond Mystic with a gentleman named Jean-Claude, and they have been doing I believe they're calling it, I'm going to say the word wartime correspondent series. I believe it's on Thursdays, maybe it's Wednesdays or Thursdays. So I would encourage you to look for that. They're talking to Ricardo Bossi in Australia, who is retired military, and he speaks on that subject. I want to say it was the second episode several weeks ago, probably almost a month ago now, if not a month ago, and talking about how the battlefield and the methods of waging battles has changed. That's fascinating. Of course, it's more of a psychological battle as opposed to a physical battle. And that's what I'm talking about. So I would encourage you to go check that information out. I'm going to leave some links to different speakers on the different subjects that I'm referencing in the description. That'll be one. I'll put the Ricardo Bossi interviews, or Bossi. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, Ricardo. Should you ever see this, or anyone affiliated with him, my apologies. And I'll also include some other links to some amazing folks who do a breakdown on some of these things that relate to this, such as the uh, laws of war, the war manual from the Department of Defense. Also, that would also devolution, continuity of government. I'm talking about some of the people I'll put in a description would be people like Derek Johnson. Rattletrap on Rumble is his channel, one of his channels. And also people like Patel Patriot, who has been speaking on devolution. And many of these subjects make it clear why what I'm saying may have some relevance to where we're at this time. And the final thing I want to say is the reason I'm bringing this out and why it's exciting to me is I want to encourage everyone. We are getting to what, in my opinion, an end in this. Well, and we must remember an end is also a new beginning. So my point is to stay positive. We need to continue to focus on your thoughts about the future to manifest a positive reality, and still look and pay attention to what's going on around you. Think about it. Use your intuition and your discernment, of course, to decide what that may or may not mean, if it's relevant, not relevant. Just pay attention and try to do your research. If you're just waking up, this is for you, so you can see how we validate, or how I validate. I've seen others talk about this as well, of course. But how do we validate these things that we have been encouraged to call quote unquote conspiracy theories? There are ways to come to conclusions about what's going on, even when it seems crazy. Sometimes it seems like the world is a little crazy, and it's always been that way. But I don't know about you, but for me these days, it seems like the last few years has been just a little crazier, just a tiny bit. I could be wrong. I'm always welcome or open to the thought process that I am incorrect and that I can be wrong, because that's how I learn. I have no problem welcoming people to tell me why I'm wrong and showing me other information so that I can learn things. So with that said, please feel free to leave comments. And of course, I would be honored if you would like, subscribe, and share my information. I am still working on putting some more shows together that will, I think, be much better as far as content, but I get a little stuck on things like not liking my camera and wanting to really put together a quality program for all of you. So that camera should be here tomorrow. I'm super excited, and I still want to get at least 2 more shows out this month. Maybe if I can pull it off, I'll even get a 3rd show with my first interview, pushing for that. And for my final commentary, I just wanted to say thank you to all of those who have subscribed and continue to watch my content. It does encourage me to keep going. And that's it. Oh, one last reminder, I'm also on Rumble. So I'll leave that there. And I hope you do have a wonderful day and a fabulous weekend coming up. We are still seeing things progress in Iraq with the dinar currency revaluating, and that's very exciting. And I look forward to continuing to share with you. Take care. See you next time.